You don't see the reality as it is. Actually, you see mostly your past. This is due to what we call the predictive brain. So, how can you reach your next level as a creator, as an entrepreneur, when you just don't perceive the reality for what it is, but mostly as a reflection of your past? This is the question this video will explore. So let's take an example. There are two persons. It is the same situation. So it's the same market. They have the same resources. They have the same skills. They have the same offer. And they have the same feedback. They receive the same feedback. But one person gets a feeling, an impression, an atmosphere of risk, scarcity, rejection. Like it's difficult to find clients, it's difficult to get the engagement on the videos, it's difficult to find opportunities to meet relevant people and make the right connections. Everything is difficult. There is a sense of scarcity. And it's more like an impression, right? It's more like an atmosphere. It's your perception. You feel it. It's what you experience. It's your experience. And the other person, let's say person two, get a different impression. So same resources, market, skills, etc. But the impression is more like maybe it's challenging, yeah, but there are opportunities. The person has a lot of different ideas. There are a lot of options. It's like more positive. So who is right? As you are probably guessing, none of them is particularly right. We can't really say that. They just see their reality, and their reality is based on the past. They don't exactly see the reality, but I would prefer to be the person too, the person who see and perceive the environment as being maybe challenging but full of opportunities than being the person one that just perceives scarcity and risk everywhere. So why does that happen? It is due to what is called the predictive brain. So the neuroscience have shown that actually the brain does not experience the reality like a camera. I thought the brain was just like a camera recording the reality, but it's just not what is happening. It's not accurate. It's more like the brain predicts the reality before you consciously experience it. And in other words, you could say that the brain is more like a predictive machine. So why this? I think it's a really good question. Like, why is the brain acting more as a predictive machine and not just like a camera? There are two reasons, survival and efficacy. So survival, we talk a lot about it in this channel because I talk a lot about the nervous system. If you watch some of my other videos, you probably learn that our bodies are just trying to survive. Survival is like the biggest goal. That's the goal. It's the same for the brain. So the brain will just constantly anticipate future events so you can survive again based on the past experiences. So it's just like a big data center. Basically, this happened, this happened, this happened. So I need to be prepared so I can survive. So you see the reality through predictions of what helped you survive in the past. So it's very personalized, right? And the second aspect we said was efficiency. So this is interesting. Actually, the brain receives so much information, like it's an enormous amount of information through senses, somatic sensations, tons of voice, social signals, emotions, facial expressions, like ton of things. And it's just too much. It's just not efficient to act as a camera and just record whatever is happening. So because processing all of this information would require like an immense amount of energy, the brain found another way and mostly predicts first and then perceives second. It's not that you don't see the reality at all. You do see the reality, but it's not the biggest part. And the brain tends to process the information of the reality, to refine, to correct the predictions. But the base, the foundation is mostly like predictions based on what helped you survive in the past. So it's very interesting for business, for creativity, for entrepreneurs. It's very interesting to know what is your brain predicting, right? And if we go back to these two persons, so I think the person one was the one that tend to perceive the reality as abundant and as just like different opportunities, connections, people, potential clients, stuff like that. Person one. Person B learned to anticipate mostly rejection and lack and scarcity. Why? Let's just take an example. So we could imagine that the second person who learned to anticipate the rejection and the lack, for example, during his or her childhood, experienced a lot of lack. Maybe the parents were just not present. Maybe there was just a lack of family members, of co-regulation. So co-regulation is just like having other people that help you feel okay and regulates your emotions and your nervous system, which is super important for a child. So if a child doesn't get that, the conclusion, like somatically in terms of nervous system, not logically, is a conclusion of lack. It's somatically, it's a feeling of lack. Or it could be rejection because maybe the parents were not there and probably it's just because they were working. But anyway, it's a child, so it feels like rejection. Scarcity, like a program of scarcity, like there are many really good reasons to have a scarcity program. Could be, for example, that during the first part of this person's career, it was actually very difficult to get an internship or to get a first job, or the market was just super competitive in this environment. So unconsciously, the program was, okay, finding work or finding money or making money is difficult because the market is difficult. But the body doesn't register like the market is difficult in this specific area, in this specific job. It feels like my experience of life is scarcity. And that's the program. And this program is going to influence the reality. Even if in the real situation, the actual situation, the business is not there is no scarcity. The environment is not like this. It's not maybe the same job. It's not the same conditions. It doesn't matter. So what can we say? Because that's when I first learned about that, I found it a bit depressing, to be honest. But in one sense, it's a bit depressing, and in another sense, it's very interesting to get a better understanding on what is happening and why we perceive certain situations as very negative when we could perceive this situation differently, and then we would act differently. So I would love to say that it's like for business, it's very interesting, but you can rewire your nervous system, you can rewire your brain, you can become a new person, and you don't need to reinvent every part of yourself, but you can just update a part of your personality, a part of who you are, a part of your identity. And when you update your identity, you also update what the reality is and what you believe. And so you don't have to build your business based on your past. That would be awful, right? So the past doesn't have to dictate how you perceive the situation. And by updating your identity, you can become I think it was the second person, now I'm getting confused, the person who perceives the situations through a lens that is just more positive. So I wish you that. And for that, yes, you can work with your nervous system, because your nervous system is also working the same way. So the nervous system just registered whatever helped you survive and is going to recreate that all the time. Same story. And you can also work on your unconscious. So you finally are become a new person. And because you are a new person, you are going to create a new reality. It's like new identity, new reality. And you don't spend your time basically just re-experiencing, at least not fully, but partly, your past. You don't want that. And I think that's the big step in business. Maybe if you're an employee, it's totally enough to be your old self and you have your old identity and to experience reality through a prediction based model. But that as a creator, as an entrepreneur, you actually want to create, and creation means that you need to create something new. You don't, it's stupid. You don't want to recreate the past. So as an entrepreneur or a creator, this is a need. You need to find a way to be able to move forward, to recreate your identity, to update it so you can update your life. Thank you for watching. I would be very interested to see in the comments what is your experience of it, if you already heard about this predictive brain and if you noticed that also in your life. And I thank you for watching. Wish you a nice day.